go ahead and call this Tuesday, January 5th, 2021 meeting of the Richland County Finance and Personnel Committee meeting to order. At this point, I'm going to encourage people to mute themselves because we may have members of the public who are interested in the tax details that are happening with agenda items number 5 and 6. So I'll go through the muting issue after we get through those, just to make sure the public can speak. And if for some reason someone from the public finds himself on this meeting and they're not being heard, but they're talking into their phone, there's a way to, I believe, press #6 to unmute yourself. So if that's happening, please don't be shy about trying that method of #6 if you're not being heard by me. Clerk Vlasic, agenda item number 2, is there proof of notification?
Yes.
And would you mind listing out the spots that this meeting was notified, please?
It's on the county website, the county courthouse bulletin board. I fax it to the observer, and each committee member gets a copy, all department heads.
Excellent, thank you. And then Clerk Vlasic, can you please take the roll?
Sure. Cooey?
Yes.
Here.
Here.
Here, Mr. Velasic.
Kirk?
Here.
Marty Brewer? I believe you have 6 present.
You didn't call me. I don't think I'm here. This is Melissa.
Okay.
Yep, so we do have a quorum, so we can conduct our business today. So thank you, Clerk Vlasic. Agenda item number 3, agenda approval. So first, I just want to thank the staff who prepared all these items. A lot of these were prepared over the holiday break. So thank you to those folks who did this work. I'd entertain a motion to approve the 20-point agenda we have in front of us.
I'll make that.
Linda Gentis.
A second. This is Melissa.
Okay, motion by Supervisor Gentis and a second by Supervisor Luck. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. We have an agenda. Agenda item number 4, previous minutes. For today, we have several sets of minutes, and I'm going to walk through each one of them with the dates, the ones that we will be entertaining approval today. So those are September 16th, September 20th, September 29th, October 27th, November 3rd, December 1st, and December 8th. So I had a really good read last night through all of our work we did at the end of 2020. We did a lot of work as a committee. I have a couple of edits that I'd like to bring up here. So on the September 29th minutes on page 2, under the Rockbridge Pier Park stairs replacement, there is a sentence saying that the committee approved the reallocation of funds from the Viola well, let's see, that would be at the Viola County Park, the well there, to the Pier County Park stairs in Rockbridge. And where the word says approve, it should have said postpone. The committee voted to postpone, and I re-listened to that section of that meeting just to make sure my memory was correct, that we did not approve that reallocation. So that's the first one. And then the second one comes from November 3rd. It's on page 1, and it's under the 2019 audit review. And it's the second to last bullet. And in front of that second to last bullet, there needs to be a phrase added where it says in 2019 and 2018 before the first word. And the reason for that, again, it's on page 1 of those November 3rd minutes. It's not the December, those are the December 1st. Yep, November 3rd. The second to last bullet, it says that health and human services and public safety expenditures were approximately 65 and 75% of total government expenditures, respectively. And the way that makes it sound is that health and human services was 65% and public safety was 66%, which is more than 100%. So I have a presentation that our auditor gave, and he had a phrase in there right beforehand. It said in 2019 and 2018. Showing that respectively referred to the years and not to the categories. So those are my edits. Did anyone else have suggested edits to this group of minutes that we're reviewing? Okay, hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes for these 7 meetings with those suggested amendments that I made.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of the 7 minutes and I ask for discussion upon second.
Sounds good. So motion by Supervisor Seat.
This is Dave. I'll second.
And by Supervisor Turk. So Supervisor Seat, go ahead.
My discussion is a question of parliamentary procedure or procedure period. These corrections that you have edited, are those corrections to be inserted procedurally into the minutes of today's meeting, or are the minutes that you have corrected to be republished? How does that work?
I'm not sure. Clerk Voss.
Well, usually I don't have any corrections, so I don't know.
So these are already published on the website. So I think it'd be, if we're talking about what would be easiest for other people to understand, if someone from the Parks Commission is going back looking at our minutes to see what our decision was on allocation of those funds from the well to the stairs, I would think they would need to be able to see the correction within those minutes and not within our minutes for today's meeting on January 5th. Does that sound right to folks?
So
yes.
Supervisor Seat, go ahead.
So what you are saying is that those 2 corrections that you refer to, one has to take those minutes and retype them so that they are properly noticed, or what? How does that correction get made so that the public knows?
Yeah, Clerk Vlasic would have to answer that.
They can always be reposted on the website.
Are they reposted as an attachment to the minutes, or how is that done?
Replace the original.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other discussion on the minutes? All right, then all those in favor of approving those minutes as amended signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. Agenda item number 5, tax parcel first. Tax parcel sale number 146-0009-0410 in Lone Rock. And I'm going to go ahead and group together agenda item number 6 with this one, just so I can get a motion to hold the sale from the committee. Agenda item number 6, tax parcel sale number 010-1022-200 in the town of Eagle. So I'd entertain a motion to hold a tax deed sale for both of those properties.
This is Dave. I'll make the motion.
Okay.
Melissa,
Motion by Supervisor Turk, second by Supervisor Luck. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we'll go ahead and hold the tax deed sales for these two parcels. So the first parcel, the one in Lone Rock, just a little bit of an additional description here. This is 0.02 acres according to our GIS website, and it's in the village of Lone Rock between, I looked this up last night. It's a parcel that's only accessible through an alley. And this is the block between Richland and Commercial Avenues and Walnut and Pine Streets. So the minimum bid recommended on this, I believe, is, oh, there it is in front of me, $100. So is anyone present today who wishes to make a bid on this tax parcel in Lone Rock? Is anyone interested in bidding? And the minimum dollars. So if you speak up, you should speak up and say you're interested in bidding for $100. Is anyone present today? Okay, and one last time, is anyone who is interested in bidding on this parcel in Lone Rock?
Mr. Chairman, I move this item be moved to the next meeting by postponement.
Okay, just a motion to postpone by Supervisor Seep. The only question I'd have is, Clerk Vlasic, did you receive any written bids for this parcel? Clerk Vlasic, did you receive any written bids? There you go. You're unmuted now.
No written bids. Yeah, I lose the screen on this computer. Great.
Okay, thank you. That's okay. I know these can be difficult to do sometimes. So a motion to postpone by Supervisor Seep. Is there a second on that one?
This is Mark, I'll second.
Okay, second by Supervisor Cooey. Any discussion on the motion to postpone? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. So then agenda item number 6, the tax parcel sale for the town of Eagle. This is in rural Muscadet, just off of Town Hall Drive. It's 4.8 acres, and the minimum bid here, I believe, is, I'm not sure if Clint's going to pull this up before I will, but I'll look it up before I say anything. $14,400. So is anyone interested in making a bid on this 4.8 acre parcel in rural Muscadet in the town of Eagle?
Yeah,
is anyone? Okay, go ahead. Can you state your name, please, sir? Sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
David Drone, D-R-O-N-E.
Okay, David Drone. Okay, so you're making a bid for $14,400. Can I just get you to confirm that?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and I'm going to ask if anyone else is interested in making a bid on this parcel, and we'll go up by $200 to $14,600. Anyone interested for $14,600?
I would make a bid. My name's Amos Vandehei, 14,600.
Okay, so we got a bid for $14,600 from Amos. I'm going to go up to $15,000. Is anyone interested in making a bid for $15,000?
I'll go 15,000. David Drone.
Okay, thank you, David. Anyone interested for $15,500?
This is Amos again. I'll do 15,500.
Okay, 16,000. Anyone interested for $16,000?
I'll go 16,000, David Drone.
Okay. Anyone interested for $16,500?
This is Amos. I'll go 16,500.
Okay, 17,000. Anyone interested for $17,000? Okay, a third time. Is anyone interested in bidding $17,000? Okay, hearing none. Amos, can you please give me your last name again and spell that out, please?
It's Vandehei, V-A-N-D-E space H-E-I.
And is the H capitalized?
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
Okay, Amos Vandehei. Okay, so I'd entertain a motion from the committee to award the sale of this parcel in the town of Eagle to Amos Vandehei at $16,500.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we award the bid to Mr. Vandehei for $17,000. I don't think that's an Irish name.
The motion I'm looking for is for $16,500.
Oh, I'm sorry. I correct myself, 16.5. I'm just trying to get another $500 out of it.
Yeah. Okay. And then a second?
Linda Gentis, I'll second it.
Okay, so motion by Supervisor Seep, a second by Supervisor Gentis. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Mr. Vandehei, you'll just need to talk. I believe it's to, let's see, you'll need to call the county clerk and the county treasurer. I can't quite remember how that works. Maybe the county treasurer, Julie Keller, that's who you should start with. And then she will set up the paperwork.
Julie needs the payment, yes.
She needs the payment. Okay. And then I'm sure you'll be working with the clerk's office too. Is that correct, Clerk Vlasic?
Correct.
Okay. Any questions, Mr. Vandehei?
No, that should be good.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Agenda item number, and I'll just insert the reminder here. So when you're not speaking, if you on *6 is how you mute and yourself. Agenda item number 7, disposition of parcel number 276-1684-8200 in Richland Center. And then for the purposes of discussion, this is a 0.2 acre parcel at 60 West 1st Street, which is north of the Phoenix Center between the Dike and Highway 14 and Orange Street. So, Mr. Langren.
Mr. Chair, item here today to bring to your attention and for further guidance on it. For the disposition of this property, the two types of motions we're looking at potentially for today is first to request that language be included into agreement where council to clear the deed by obtaining legal waivers of rights to refute county possession. This would be coming from previous owners. And the second motion today request council drafts an agreement with terms for sale of the property by terms negotiated through county city economic development director. The background on this property is on December 3rd, 2020, Property Buildings and Grounds Committee of Richland County made motion regarding this parcel to pursue economic development plan for the parcel, to make preparations to sell the parcel to the City of Richland Center pursuant of Wisconsin State Statute 75.692, notify finance and personnel of intentions to sell the city for economic development, submit gas line abandonment requests for We Energies in preparation of demolition of the property. Background on this property is it was acquired through resolution by the county board. We're looking to work with the city and other partners in trying to potentially raise the property in support of future economic developments in either housing or in commercial use, as it is in the in and about the Orange Street corridor. There's several different kind of visions for it, but it would come with a partnership and working through the details to try to make that vision happen. The property committee took previous actions on November 4th meeting to develop a plan for the best utilization of the property by motion of Cosgrove, seconded by Williamson. The discussion has been had with County Board Chair Marty Brewer. We've incorporated City Mayor Todd Coppernell, Economic Development Director Jason Glassbrenner, County Board Supervisor Gary Manning regarding the options to raise the property for future developments by removing the existing house to facilitate again new development. The economic impacts I will pass over and defer to Director Glassbrenner to better expound upon, as well as he'll help us cover kind of the long-term impacts of trying to maneuver on a property in this manner versus just selling it as we had just previously done with the last agenda item by tax deed. And then he can also expound upon then kind of the future visions and options that could go with it and kind of bring you up to date on the different mechanics that we're trying to work through. So with that being said, Director Glassbrenner, are you able to chime in here?
Yes, can you hear me?
I have you.
Okay, so starting at that next spot down, it should be, if you're able to see a screen, it should be on display there where it says estimated short-term expenses. So historically, right, we would maybe move through a process where we have an auction just like we experienced. There would be some revenue for this property, potentially $10,000 to $20,000. We don't know what the market is on a home like that. It's in very high levels of disrepair. There are a lot of issues with the home, so it's difficult to tell who would come forward and place a bid and at what level. But you could have a potential auction return between 10 and 20 hypothetically. The fair market value as recorded in the tax assessments roughly $57,000. Again, what the market would actually bear is probably much less than that. There are utilities owed on the property of $537.31, and there's a past taxes due of $6,804. So you have what you could say a total investment at this point by the county if they forego auction returns between $17,000 and $27,000. That's if the property is sold to the city for $1 for redevelopment. Okay, are there any questions on that part? Okay, so the next phase is the projected improvements by the city. So the city would take care of having the old structure removed, and again that would be in partnership with Gary Manning, who said he would provide labor and equipment to do that. However, the city would be responsible for providing removal of the debris in the form of dumpsters and things like that. City would have to maintain the property and of course develop a plan to market and transfer to a new developer, as well as then monitor the implementation of the development agreement. And so I just put a number down there estimating of what it would cost the city to hold the property. So let's say the city's approximate investment in the project is $10,000. So the long-term revenue effects of running a program like this is, if your current tax revenue is currently on a property value of $53,000 is around $1,325 per year. Tax revenue on an improved property of $250,000, which I think is a low to medium estimate. It's likely that a new property built there could be valued higher than that. But your tax revenues are $6,250 per year. So at that $6,250 per year, your revenue shares are about $2,083 per year for each the county, the city, and the schools. If you compare that to the revenue generated by a $53,000 property, you're looking at $441 that each the county, city, and schools would receive. So you can see that that's about a 500% return difference. So the years to recover the county investment of your cash outlay or your cash loss, which is the tax revenue, right? And the past utilities due is about 3.6 years with the county's return of $2,000. If you factor in the opportunity cost of unrealized auction revenue, then that moves between 8.4 years and 13 years. It just, again, we don't know where that property would sell at. There are other economic impacts of implementing a program like this, with the collaboration between the county and the city, which is that we are increasing the quality of housing units. An attractive county/city program like this, attractive residential properties draws people in. Attractive neighborhoods help hold tax assessments up. So there may be some benefit to that. If we're able to develop a new residential house there, then it's going to help hold the other values of the taxable properties in the neighborhood up versus what's currently happening now, which is it's a strong detractor. So you also have the possibility of increase in students in local schools. That just occurs because you have nice properties, and of course, if it was a duplex, the more people that you have in Richland Center, the more likelihood that some of those people will have children. If that is the case, then of course, probably many of you realize that as a child enrolls in our school, there's a $10,000 per child revenue stream that the school experiences. The last thing that I'd like to mention is the increase in the density means that there's just more people active in our local economy. So it is an investment strategy that has not been implemented that I'm aware of to this point in the county or city's history. There is some upfront investment, but I think when you consider that, a county and city are required to look at 10-year comprehensive plans and things like that, I think the numbers that we're showing there make it very obvious that a short-term investment like this can have long-term revenue benefits to the county and to the city and to the schools. The property in question there, you can kind of see on your screen now, is on the south of your paper. So it's towards the bottom of your paper. You can kind of see the cursor moving. 460 West 1st Street. The house would be taken out. Again, there's many moving parts there. The idea would be to replace it with the next picture down, potentially something that looks like that. That is what's called a narrow lot duplex. So it's built, deep on the property and narrow so that you can have 2 living units there. That's a possibility. Of course, once it would move into the city's hands, and then I would continue to work on a program. I can't promise that would be the exact building there, but again, the idea is to replace an older, dilapidated home that's holding property values down with new residential facilities. So if there are any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep, go ahead, Supervisor Seat.
Mr. Glassbrenner, in other words, the county becomes the owner of this property by virtue of delinquent taxes?
That's correct. The county is currently the owner.
Okay. And the next step would be through an agreement with the city, to possibly, one alternative would be to sell the property to the city or for $1.
That's correct. That's what we're proposing today.
And,
go ahead, Supervisor Seat. Sorry.
and among those options are the possibility of auctioning it and generating $17,000 to $20,000 for the property as an estimate.
The estimate that we've got is that the property could sell at between $10,000 and $20,000. Again, it's very difficult to tell in the current condition. The home has had broken water lines. The bathrooms are, I mean, if you were in there, there's probably some of you that could not hold your stomach. So it is not a polite looking property. There's a lot of damage, you know, internal. It's on a crawl space, so it's very old. So that there's a lot of work to be done. So it's hard to tell, but we've put an estimate there of an auction return of 10 to 20,000.
I presume that a developer who may be the purchaser of the property would then buy the property and then develop it accordingly. Is that right?
Well, the idea of this program, yes, you're correct. So if a developer, let's say someone that is in the business of renting homes in the area, they could come in and buy the property for whatever the auction brings. So they invest $10,000, $20,000 into the home. They go ahead and they put another 25,000, 30,000, whatever the, hypothetically, again, we don't know for sure, but someone could choose to put in the bare minimum to make that home occupiable again. If they were to do that, the assessed tax value on that property is not going to go up. It's going to remain right where it's at $53,000. And so again, yes, you would have an occupiable space, but you're also giving up the possibility of generating a tax revenue that's 400% of what it currently is, if you choose to continue to, you know, liquidate properties in that manner.
Well, could you, follow-up question, could you sell it conditioned upon their raising the property and developing it to a point that it would generate an appropriate revenue to the county?
Yes, we could do that on the county side. We could put the property up for sale. Yes, with those conditions.
Just a final word, Mr. Chairman. It seems to me that if we were to auction the property outright for $10,000 to $20,000, and who knows what we would get for it, and we didn't exercise the option of letting the city have it for $1, if we paid for raising the property ourselves, we might be spending all the $17,000 to $20,000. That would be another case of spinning our wheels. So is letting the city have it for $1 and let them take on the responsibility for raising it and developing it a more favorable option?
So I'm just going to jump in here real quick. So I spent about an hour researching and thinking through this because we haven't done before. And I checked with Treasurer Keller. She doesn't have a memory that we've done something like this before either. I think Mr. Glassbrenner is bringing us an idea for economic development that has a better longer term payoff than if we followed our typical process of selling it to a member of the public. And I'm sure a neighbor could buy this property and tear the house down and have a bigger yard. And I think what Mr. Glassbrenner is saying is we could get more return on our investment as the county and other taxing districts if there was a new house put there. What I did, the research that I did that I want to share with folks is that I did look through Chapter 75 of state statute. And I know in the cover sheet, there was a reference, and Mr. Glassbrenner, you're probably going to need to write this down. You had referenced 75.69, but there's also a section 75.35, and this has to do with procedures for, I believe, and you need, of course, to research this more on your own because I'm not a lawyer. I'm just reading this to try to understand basically what our obligations are. When counties are selling a property and a municipality has special assessments regarding utility fees or other special assessments, there's a procedure set out in state statute for how a municipality can purchase a property from a county. That's my understanding. And I might be misunderstanding it, but that was my reading under 75.35. And that's section 2, section F. So, then I also requested that Clerk Vlasic sends, let's see, it's ordinance number 12-18 as amended. I remembered in the last term we had amended this ordinance. This is the ordinance which directs how we should sell properties at the county. We made some amendments that weren't related to what we're talking about today. And there have been several amendments made over the past decade to ordinance 18. And one of my questions is, are we following our ordinance if we sell this property to the city, if this committee sells this property to the city for $1, or do we need to make amendments to that ordinance to make it all work? And I don't know the answer to that question, but I think that's the other piece of research that I just want to share with the group. And I know that the way things were written today in this cover sheet, this was more about working with Corporation Counsel to come up with an agreement for terms of sale for the property. I believe you're asking us today to sell the property. I think you're asking us to, give us your input before we sell the property, so that you can work with Corporation Counsel. So that's my input, and I just want to see if other folks have input as well. Supervisor, Supervisor Cooey, were you speaking up before?
No.
Okay, Supervisor Luck.
I was just looking, so in the document that Director Glassbender provided us, the economic development plan for the parcel that goes through the tasks, it says that the payment of delinquent utilities would be the county. So if we sold that outright, would we also be responsible for the delinquent utilities, or would that go to the buyer?
Mr. Chairman?
Yep, Clerk Vlasic.
The county accepts everything when they take a tax deed property. Utilities, any outstanding lien against it, we accept it.
We would pay it regardless, or we accepted pay. Okay, all right, thank you.
And Supervisor Luck, one other piece of information that I learned from Treasurer Keller today is we've already been paying the city for utility assessments on this property. We wrote off taxes, I believe she said, since 2016, and that included special assessments. So that's been what we've been doing already. But statute 75.35 has some information about how to come up with the sum that a city can purchase, or a municipality can purchase a property from a county, and it includes some information on those utility assessments.
Mr. Chairman.
Yep, Supervisor C.
Could I ask Mr. Glassbrenner, are you looking for a recommendation from us today as to what we would like to do with the property, or are you seeking permission to talk to work with Mr. Southwick to develop options for us and come back with a recommendation of what is the best bottom line option for us?
Yeah, so
let me kind of chime in as well. This kind of goes into, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, is it okay if I take the floor here? It kind of talks, as Chairman Murphy-Lopez had mentioned with our ordinance, part of bringing this to you and looking for motions and actions is in fact that we're working outside of what our regular ordinance language would be. It would still be substantiated because we would have Wisconsin state statute language that we had found underneath 7569-2 that kind of gave authorization. As discussed, perhaps more language needs to be incorporated underneath 75.35, but that was the intent of bringing it to you folks today, as because of ordinance and it's your ability to sell the final kind of disposition act of selling a property to somebody else. We kind of wanted to make sure that you were aware and on board with what we were trying to accomplish, and working with the city is the final decision on that will have to come through you. And that being said, then looking for your blessing on kind of working out an agreement then between the city and the county on setting the conditions in place of what both parties are comfortable with and what the expectations are, so that we have those things firmed up on the front end and one of the parties isn't left with an unexpected cost or some other types of expectation that wasn't talked about prior to the decisions. Is there anything else that I missed there, Director Glassbrenner?
No, I think that's good. I think that's a good summary. I mean, other information that's important to know is that the city has been considering this along with the process that the county is moving through. This has been to the city's finance committee and to the full council, and both of them have agreed that they would like to continue to pursue a collaborative effort along this line. So I think this is part of the process, and we can certainly have more questions answered. And to your exact point, this would not be to agree to sell today for $1. This is more of an agreement to allow myself to continue to collaborate between the county and the city, to work with Clint, to work with the city officials, to bring a kind of final proposal to the table that you would then vote on.
Mr. Chairman, to cut to the chase, is there a motion prepared, or would Mr. Langbrick state the motion and for us?
Two parts of the motion that we were looking today was to request that language be included in agreement where council would clear the deed by obtaining legal waivers of rights to refute county possession. And that comes with our taking property by tax deed. There is legal language that allows previous owners a 3-year period to file a claim saying that the county took it illegally. That becomes a sticking point because of future developments. In order for a future developer to get a mortgage from a lender against the property, they're going to be looking for a clear deed. So that becomes some mechanics that we would have to work through on trying to get the parcel completely kind of cleared and free from that period where they could refute our possession. The second part then would be work out an agreement again through Director Glassbrenner with the city and the county that kind of puts the different terms we had talked about on who's handling what pieces and what the agreement is or the limitations are with selling it to ensure that it kind of goes towards the intentions of both parties' desires for economic development. Did I state that correctly, Director Glassbrenner?
Yeah, it's difficult probably to put it in, to compact that down. We probably could use some assistance on that, but yes, I agree. The 3-year element that's being spoken of is a right to, again, for the original property owner to try to reclaim the property. It's an issue anytime a municipality, or in this case, the county, goes to sell property. And it's in the state statute. There's 2 ways to sell land after it's been taken over on tax deed. We're working through all of that, but that's hopefully clarifies a little bit. The 3-year is it exists on every property that the county takes. There's a 3-year right to try to reclaim that by the original owners. The only way economic development can take place that involves borrowed money is if that right is removed from the original property owner. So we're working on that so that the city would be able to have the property and then to locate a developer that could borrow money to go ahead and build a duplex, or an individual to build a new home. So that's why that element is being included here.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep, go ahead, Supervisor Seep. Yep.
I appreciate the explanation. It's a rather long run-on sentence for a motion. I think we need a very clear motion that's understandable, not just to the board, but to the, is it necessary to have that motion today, or do you need time to prepare a notion that covers all of the issues?
So, Supervisor Seep, I'm just going to jump in and say that, my reaction to the amended motion was that it is pretty in the weeds as well. I think about, I think this is kind of about some of the mechanics that go through in developing an agreement to come back to us. I think I was thinking of a more simple motion that might be something like, a motion to direct Mr. Glassbrenner to work with Corporation Counsel to ensure statutory requirements are being followed and make recommendations to amend Ordinance 12-18 if necessary to transfer ownership to the city. So if we need a developer's agreement to go along with it for statutory or ordinance reasons, you know, I don't know that we need to be getting into all those issues, but I think from our standpoint, we're tasked as a committee with carrying out Ordinance 12-18. And I just want to make sure that we're following our own ordinances before we're asked to sell the property to the city. I'm just curious what other people think about that. I don't want to get too lost in all this, but also, you know, I think he's, in a way, I almost don't even know if Mr. Glassbrenner needs a motion from us. I think he might need to hear if there are objections from committee members to following this sort of a path, to instead of selling the property to the public, selling it to the city. Do we have committee members who object to that?
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, Supervisor Turk.
While I certainly don't object to it, I think we should take whatever steps we need to do to make sure this can move forward. This is a chance to do development on unoccupiable property that's currently standing and looking horrendous and not doing anybody any good at all. In the past, we've held on to these for a long time. We've wound up paying to demolish them and then have vacant lots. This is an opportunity to take a process where we won't just have a nice looking vacant lot, which is an improvement upon the previous structure that's standing there, but have a viable increase in both the number of units and the quality of housing units available in Richland County. And so while I share your concern about complying with our own county ordinance, I think we should take whatever steps necessary as soon as possible to, if necessary, amend that ordinance to make this possible and allow the Economic Development Initiative in partnership with the city to move forward.
Okay. Any other committee members?
This is Melissa. I agree with what Dave said. I think that we definitely need to be doing what we can to help with economic development, and this seems like a perfect project to try it on. And if this works out well, then we can, you know, figure out how to utilize this in the future. And if it doesn't work out well, then we know. But I think it's worth a try for sure.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh yeah, Supervisor Brewer, you're here.
Yes, I'm here finally. I had to call in. Anyway, yeah, it's a great idea. We got to do it. That is a stumbling block, that 3-year window of filing claim. I would think this has been done in the past by various municipalities and entities around the state. I'm sure there's some precedents we can look up and follow, but I'm all for the project.
Okay. Anyone else who hasn't spoken? Okay, I'm going to make one more attempt then. I'm going to make a motion to support the concept of selling this parcel to the city and return to the committee with further details. So that's my motion.
I will second that motion.
Okay, second by Supervisor Brewer. Further discussion on the motion? I'm going to repeat it one more time. It's a motion to support the concept of selling this parcel to the city and return to the committee with further details. Okay, so if there's no other discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Glassbrenner, for bringing this to us.
Yeah, thanks for helping to clarify that motion language. That's good. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. Agenda item number 8. Report with grant application. Mr. Langreich.
Mr. Chair, coming before you today, item that we have talked about on several committee meetings stemming back for, I believe, several years as well. Director Glassbrenner is here to give us our final kind of project application bid and supporting resolutions, and kind of walk us through the two selected projects for the CDBG close with the grant for the improvement for two existing projects here within the county. That being said, Director Glassbrenner.
Yeah, so this is hopefully nearing the conclusion of a very long process. You can say today that we've got several items that I will walk through as far as actions needed. We'll be looking at a PowerPoint slide. I just wanted to briefly take us through how we got to where we are today. Also, we'll review a project cost summary. Also, the final fund accounting may be provided here by the county, although we know that we're very close, and payments change, right? Because there's an outstanding loan, there's lots of details, but we should be very close on the summary there. Number 4 is approval of grant application resolution for Richland Center City Auditorium, and then 5 is approval for grant application resolution for Village of Lone Rock. The background, of course, is that this CDBG close program was placed into effect in around January of 2019 and pertains to the closeout of the county CDBG Economic Development Revolving Loan Fund. Has an approximate value of $1.2 million. So they converted the Economic Development Revolving Loan Fund to the CDBG close program. We were allowed to submit 2 applications as a county to retrieve that money back in. At this point, several hundred hours have been invested by past, current county board members, county staff, professional consultants, state officials, and community members of Richland Center and Lone Rock to get to this point in the process. I'll show you that dozens of projects were considered and ultimately eliminated through the constraints of the CDBG program. And the 2 projects being presented today, the Richland Center City Auditorium Accessibility Project and the Village of Lone Rock Village Center Park, are expected to have long-term and wide area benefit to their specific communities as well as the overall county. So with that, I would say, could we switch? There we go. So this is just a brief presentation I put together in regard to the close process, identifying potential projects. So this is how it worked. HUD established rules that said to use this money, you're supposed to benefit low to moderate income communities. So they have created numerous subdivisions starting at a county level. And you can see here that in the highlighted area that's in white, down near the bottom, it says low mod _ percent 44.64. Can you kind of see that? It says low mod _ percent 44.64. Whether or not you're able to view it, what it means is it's highlighting all of Richland County, and all of Richland County has approximately 44.64% of its population categorized as low to moderate income. In order to use this money on the kind of the entry level, your low to moderate income percentage has to be above 51%. So the county as a subdivision, if you included the entire county, the county does not meet the requirement of the use of money in an area with 51% of the population being in the low to moderate income. So, as I mentioned, there are other subdivisions inside the county. You can see here, these are subdivisions based on, I don't know entirely, but census tracts, things like that. They call this the block group map. The block group map. And again, if you were on the HUD website, you could click on each of these blocks that are outlined in black, and you could receive data on them that says, yes, this block of area and its residents are at X percent of the, either above 51% or below 51%. Next slide. Then they break it out into additional blocks. They call this block the place and consolidated city map. So you'll notice here you have the Village of Boaz, Richland Center, Sextonville, Gotham, Lone Rock, Yuba, Kaz, and Viola, all highlighted there. That means they did data research in those areas to discern whether or not those communities would be meet the threshold for 51% of low to moderate income. The communities that meet it are Boaz, Lone Rock, Richland Center, and Viola. The other communities are below 51%. In other words, less than 51% of their population is low to moderate income. However, Boaz, Lone Rock, Richland Center, and Viola have a population base where over 51% are low to moderate income. So that you can see from that why it's easier to drill down into a place like Lone Rock and Richland Center versus some of the other villages that are throughout. Go to the next slide. They even break it down into our townships. Again, you could click on each township. It's very few. I believe it's something like 3 of the townships out of the county actually meet the criteria. Let's go to the next slide. In this process, I started shortly after my position began. These are the list of things that I combed through, and there are probably several that I missed, but everything from library improvements in the city to city parking lots, and that would include, I did research in some of these smaller villages too on parking lots, on roads, retirement community and senior living as a development option. I looked at that. The Yuba gas station and fire station, flood recovery, 12 homes in Lone Rock area that were damaged by previous flooding. The Viola camping park, I did have some consideration over that. Blight removal in Cazenovia, the child care center and solutions for our county, broadband expansion projects, pay down nursing home debt, Comar properties, Pine Valley care upgrades, Simmons Recreation Center, the bridge at the campus, 80 German warehouse, county emergency services building, removal of blighted properties throughout the county, regardless of where they're at, new housing development, new infill housing programs, County Highway Y, County Highway O, Church Street repair between Hazelton and Gage Street, Richland Center City Auditorium, and the Lone Rock Main Street sidewalks and lighting. And again, that's a summary, and there were variations of each of those that I tried to work through, but were ultimately eliminated because of complexity or their inability to meet the criteria of CDBG funding. That lands us where we're at today. It's no surprise to any of you that the 2 projects are the City Auditorium Accessibility Project. These slides were shared in the public hearing that was that we had by WebEx on December 17th. We had over 30 people participate in the public hearing. That's just locations. Let's go on, Clint, to the next one. Pictures of the City Auditorium. Next one is just of the current access to the building. It's all stairs, of course, making it very hard for people that have, just difficulty with their mobilization. It's difficult for them to get up and down. So the project is to do, this is a conceptual drawing. You notice to the left where the banner is, that's a new structure that would be added to the side of the auditorium. And you can see on the next slide, it is highlighted just like Clint did on that one. So the Richland Center Performing Arts Council has been working towards an accessibility project so individuals with disabilities can more freely participate in events and utilize the building. Project will include building an elevator tower and stair tower for access to all floors. So again, this is just a plan diagram of that project. The second project is the Village Center Park at Lone Rock. Again, we kind of drilled down on that. This is along Highway 130 that runs through Lone Rock. Next one is a satellite view of the properties. That is currently Ewers Construction on their main street in Lone Rock. The community expressed and has been looking at this for a long, long time, trying to figure out how they could move forward so the downtown could be made more attractive, and so that they could maintain Ewers Construction Company, which has been a mainstay in their community for a long time. Again, pictures maybe older, but their pictures kind of the condition that exists there on their main street. And then the next two pictures are of Sidewalk. This is a sidewalk that is part of the project that would be improved. This leads from that city center park down to their old high school. So it would be kind of a commemorative walk, as well as, you know, a nice space for the community to be able to just exercise and get out. And then finally, the project details. You can see the red at the bottom of your page there represents the site that would be, everything would be removed and demolished, and that would become a city center park. And then the blue line represents all of the sidewalk that would be upgraded. The project details are to purchase the land, demolish the buildings, add topsoil, grade, and seed to establish green space, install sidewalks inside the park, and remove old sidewalk from East Liberty to East Dr. B. Reynolds Street and install new sidewalk. So those are, that's a lot of information. I could take a few questions before, if you would like. I can answer any questions prior to moving on to the actual resolutions themselves.
Committee members, do you have any questions thus far? If you don't, Mr. Glassburner, just go ahead and walk through everything, and then we'll open it up to folks. And
okay, so I think maybe the next one should be the actual financial data, Clint. Okay, so the projects, this is a financial breakdown of the money that the county has. This document was prepared by our consultant, which is Vierbecker Engineering. I know there was a question, I had received it. I saw Alan Lynn's here earlier today. I don't know if he's still here, but he had a question in regard to what the number 5 was, which 17,500. So let's just look down through these numbers and I'll answer that. So the top A is the Richland Center City Auditorium. These numbers have been provided by professional engineering firms, you know, professional consultants, so that we have a decent estimate of and projection of what the cost would be. So you have site work in Richland Center, new addition, elevator, subtotal for the construction, 15% contingency, architectural engineering fee, owner direct costs, CDBG grant administration, miscellaneous publication costs. So again, this was put together in collaboration with engineering firms who knew the specific costs, as well as our consultant, which is Vierbecker Engineering. Total project cost is $1,174,950 for the city auditorium. The $17,500 is a grant administration fee, which would be due on this project to Vierbecker Engineering. That fee involves making sure that when the monies come, that they're appropriately paid out, all of the recording, you know, all of the records are kept appropriately, because all of that information has to be reported back very specifically to the state and to the grantor. So the $17,500 is an administration fee from Vierbecker Engineering, who will make sure that we are complying at all levels in the spending of this money and the oversight of that project.
Mr. Chairman, a question on that 17.
Supervisor Seat.
A question on the 17,500. What line is that on? Is that under description 1?
Number 5.
Under description?
Yes, 1A5 under description.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm. That number was included in the proposal that we probably reviewed in
September.
Maybe September. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so the B project there is the Village of Lone Rocks City Center project. There's acquisition of property for $175,000, closing costs of $5,000. proposed demolition and site improvements of $190,500, and concrete sidewalk of $90,500. Again, you have a CDBG grant administration, so they oversee the entirety of that project as well to make sure that it stays in order financially and can be reported back to the state. Miscellaneous publication costs for a total non-CDBG eligible cost. Total non-CDBG, total non-478. I don't know why that says total non-eligible. Sorry about that. The total cost of that project are estimated at $478,750. So the total of those two projects is $1,653,700. Okay. Then you move to item C and/or Roman numeral 2. It looks like there. You can see a summary of what the grant breakout is proposed at. This is what has been talked about and expressed to each of the parties that are involved, both Lone Rock and the Richland Center team, that $721,500 would be covered towards the auditorium improvement, and that actually in the Lone Rock, $478,500. So Lone Rock is getting a 100% coverage on their project, while they get significant less money. They get their project covered at 100%, and Richland Center gets significantly more money, but that team still has to come up with $453,000 worth of gap funding. We have been in conversation with that team constantly, and they believe that that is attainable. They are having conversations in regard to fundraising, as well as having had conversations with local lending institutions. So I believe that is the completion of the summary, or the complete summary of the financial element.
Mr. Glassbrenner, can you just show us those two resolutions quickly too? I believe that's the main thrust of what you need out of us today, but we'll get input from folks, but let's just go through these real quick.
Yep. So you see one before you now. It's the Richland Center Auditorium. This is language that's provided again by our consultant, and is it has been reviewed by the State Department of Administration, so that we know that we're having the right resolutions considered by the county to make a viable application. So I don't know what your preference would be if we want to read those. I don't know how you want to do that.
No, I don't think there's any need. The committee had these beforehand, so if they wanted to read them, they could, and everyone can afterward too. So committee members, do you have comments or questions for Mr. Glassbrenner on his presentation?
Mr. Chairman, I have one question.
Yep, go ahead, Supervisor Seat.
Who is responsible for the $450,000 on the auditorium that does not come from the grant?
The Richland Center Performing Arts Council would be responsible for that amount.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yep, Supervisor Luck.
Director Glassbrenner, what would happen if they failed to come up with that money? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, if they fail, we do not have an opportunity at that point to recoup the funds. So this has been an ongoing discussion with them. I feel like I've covered it as much as I can from the point of economic development to make sure that they were comfortable and able to move forward. Again, I've not been privy to the conversations they've had with their different donors and or the lending institutions that they have indicated to me that they've spoken to, but they have given indication that they believe that raise is feasible. In addition to that, there is a little bit of safety factor in these. You'll notice both of them had 15% overages. It's our hope that we would find some savings in that. And we also have it worked out that in the case that a project, the Lone Rocks project, comes in under budget, which is possible, the funds can be transferred to the other project to reduce the gap funding necessary. Now, again, there's speculation there, obviously, but doing all that I can to make sure that both of these are successful projects.
One question.
Nope, sorry. You're muted, Sean. Sorry.
You're on.
Supervisor Luck finished first.
Okay, yeah. Director Glassman or Mike, I guess my question is, do they have to have that money secured before the project starts, or do they have until the project is done to secure those funds? How does that work?
Yeah, so they do not have to have the money secured at application, which is here at the end of January, but they have to give a verbal, they have to provide documentation that they as a group are willing to and have a good idea of how those funds will be available. When there's a process that we move through with respect to the grant awards, and I'm forgetting the exact terminology, but we submit the applications are reviewed, and they send basically back a contract to us saying, okay, here's what we found based on your application, and we will do this for you with all of these criteria. At that point, which we believe to be sometime in March, the auditorium will be required to prove that they have funding for the project. And that could be in the form, as I understand it today, could be in the form of a letter from a banking institution saying, we hereby are willing to loan this amount on this project, and as well as statements of the funds that our CPAC has been able to raise to date.
All right, thank you. I have one other question, Mr. Chair. So Director Glassbender, what about there was some talk of some contamination issues on the site in Lone Rock. Has that all been worked out and everything's, I assume, since you're bringing it forward, that's all been worked out?
We've been working really hard on that. Yes. So that site that we're looking at there was a former gas station, had 4 buried gas tanks on the property. We found historical documentation from the DNR that indicated that those tanks had been removed to code at that point in time. There is nothing in the current research that we've done that indicates that there should be any more substantial contamination. But I have worked with the DNR to receive, I haven't received it yet, but I've received approval to receive on, Lone Rock could receive what's called a municipal exemption on any future contamination found. So that provides a huge safety factor with respect to Lone Rock and the amount of money that they potentially could have to invest. Because if they didn't have that municipal exemption, they could say, okay, well, you own the property, there's no previous owner, you clean it up. And the municipal exemption reduces that liability substantially. So again, all of the consultants, the DNR people that I've talked to, the person that from the DNR that works on the municipal exemption, all indicate that we believe that we are on very firm ground with the numbers that we have provided for the project.
Okay. I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to be a park. So obviously we want it to be safe for the kids and people to occupy. So as long as that's taken care of, that's all I care about. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other committee members who haven't spoken up on this yet? Ask any questions or share any comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Just a sec. I just want to make sure there's no one else first.
Mr. Chair?
Yep. Go ahead, Supervisor Turk.
Just want to commend Jason Glassbrenner and everybody he's been working with on getting these plans put together. It took us a long time of throwing up our hands and trying to think what the heck we were going to do with this. And in a relatively short period of time, we have 2 proposals in hand to fully utilize this. So thank you very much.
Okay. Any other committee members who haven't spoken up yet? I'll just add here, I did attend that meeting on December 17th. There was a lot of support for both projects. So I'm supportive of both projects. I think they'll be great for our county. The one thing I pitched to Director Glassbrenner is it'd be great to see more projects throughout the county with other funding sources. Obviously, we can only do 2 projects with this funding, so it makes sense. We got to pick and choose. But in the outlying countryside and other villages, it'd be great to see more projects, and I'm sure we will over the coming years. So, Supervisor Seep, did you have one last thing you wanted to add?
Yes, I join with both you and Supervisor Clerk in commending you and thanking Mr. Glassman for his hard work on this. I just had one quick question. Can you tell me if is there a relationship by the Auditorium group who say they're going to raise the funds? Is there any kind of relationship in terms of financial backing or co-signing with the city of Richland Center, or what is that relationship between that facility and the city of Richland Center?
Yeah, so from what I understand, and I haven't reviewed the official documentation myself, but from what I understand, some years ago, don't even know the year, the auditorium was conveyed to the RC PAC for $1. It was when the city was trying to figure out how in the world to deal with the auditorium in its current condition. And they agreed to basically sell the building to the RC PAC for $1 with the expectation that it would be revitalized for long-term use in the community. RC PAC has been trying to do that for years and has had different successful elements. For example, the awning that's on the front of the building was all redone, rebuilt with monies that RC PAC was able to either raise or able to bring in due to events at the auditorium. So the city does not own that any longer, but because it's still a very wide area community use, it is a viable project.
May I just follow up on that? Is of substantial benefit to the community, no question about that. And it seems to me that, you know, the county could use that $750,000 for other purposes if they so choose to do it. But I think that the fact that the county is willing to allow the money to go toward that auditorium improvement, it would be helpful, I would think, if consideration were given to approaching the city about some support.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and say that I'm going to entertain a motion now to, if folks go to the agenda item cover sheet, there are 5 actions listed as needed. I think what we really need here is action on number 4 and number 5, which is approval of a grant application resolution for the Richland Center City Auditorium Accessibility Project and for the Village of Lone Rock Village Center Park Project. And of course, this would need to be passed on to the county board since this is a county board. It's under their purview. We would just be recommending it to them. So I'd entertain a motion to that effect.
Mr. Chair, do we need one motion for both applications?
One for each.
Oh, okay. So let's take number 4 first. This would be the motion for the Richland Center City Auditorium Accessibility Project.
This Mark, I'll make a motion.
Okay, motion by Supervisor Cooey.
This is Linda Janice. I definitely second it. I'm all in favor.
Second by Supervisor Gentis. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Second, I'd entertain a motion to approve the grant application resolution for the Village of Lone Rock Village Center Park Project.
This is Dave. I'll make the motion.
Okay, motion by Supervisor Turk and a second by Supervisor Brewer. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Glassbrenner.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for your time.
Yeah. Okay, agenda item number 9, emergency purchase of heat exchange utilizing short-term capital borrowing. Mr. Langright.
Mr. Chair, looking today for a motion to grant utilization of appropriated short-term capital funds for the emergency purchase of a heat exchanger for Melville Hall and recommend resolution by the county board in compliance with rule number 14. An aged heat exchanger at Melvin Hall failed in late November. Under emergency provisions in Rule 14, Chair Gentis of the UW Plateau Richland Campus Committee gave authorization to pursue replacement and authorized expenditure. Bids were solicited and Ash Creek, operating as Precision Controls, responded with the lowest bid. The heat exchange has been replaced. Funds in the 2021 short-term capital borrowing appropriated for line 9 UW campus humidifier replacements in library, HVC controls in Wallace and Melville. Facility improvements in the amount of $2,000 is what we're queued in on. And the recommendation is to utilize $17,925.99 of that appropriation for the emergency replacement. And you'll see then the invoice here. And if there was any questions or concerns that I might not be able to ask, Supervisor Gentis may have further insight on it as well. Mr.
Okay, so
This
go ahead,
Gentis.
Supervisor Gentis. Yep.
Yeah, I just want to say I checked that it was legal when there was an emergency like this, and Clint Langreck and Marty Brewer, we conferred and found that there were statements in the statute, so if this happens, that we could go ahead and do it immediately because it was definitely needed.
Okay, so thank you, Supervisor Gentis. So I'd entertain a motion to use short-term capital funds for this emergency purchase.
So moved.
I'll second this, Mark.
Okay, motion by Supervisor Brewer, second by Supervisor Cooey. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Dean Federley did a lot of work on this, and he's to be thanked for all his initiative on this project.
Definitely.
Well done.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Dean Federley. If you're on the phone, if not, make sure to pass that along to him. Is anyone opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Item number 10, VEEAM backup software purchase. Mr. Langreich.
Mr. Chair, looking today for a motion to approve purchase of VEEM Essentials software for 3 years from JComp Technologies for $13,627.86. Background on this is VEEM is our backup recovery and monitoring software for servers that is used for protection and analytics of data. This software will assist MIS not only with backups, but with configuration of data needs for future growth. We'll move from our current Veritas backup software to VEEM. This purchase will be made using funds from borrowed money designated for MIS. Please note that there's only one quote that came back with the 3-year option, and that is from JComp. And this will save the county significant amounts of money. I can scroll then through the different bids that were solicited while I turn it over to Director Scott for any additional inputs to put on this. Director Scott.
Well, you did amazing. It's VEEM is the name of the product. Yep. And Veritas is what we're going to be replacing. And this is actually switching over our backup software, but it also helps us with some of our disaster recovery pieces that we're required to do for emergency management, public health, and a lot of other Pine Valley. Sorry, my phone's going to ring. Those pieces are required. So with this software, we not only do the backups, but we can meet those disaster recovery needs as well.
Okay, committee members.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval.
Okay, motion by Supervisor Seat.
I'll second this, Mark.
Supervisor Cooey, any further discussion or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Scott. Agenda item number 11, approval of portable radio purchase with capital improvement fund. Mr. Langreich.
Mr. Chair, looking today for motion to recommend resolution by the county board for purchase of 3 portable radio units with money from the Fund 75 capital improvements from Brandt Communications. Background, our current portable radio inventory is aging and mostly made up of secondhand units. In our 2020 budget, we had money allotted for radio equipment. In an effort to update our portable radio inventory, I'm requesting the purchase of 3 portable radio units from Brandt Communications. The estimated for the total 3 units is $5,409.18 of a $6,000 allocation through Fund 75. Brandt Communications provided the lowest estimate of the 3 vendors, which was selected in December 2020 LEJC meeting. Expenditures over $5,000 requiring board resolution. And I'm not sure if we have Chief Porter on to further expound upon it, but I do have a secondary document with the bids.
Okay, I notice he is on the call, but let's see if committee members have any questions, and if he wants to pipe up, he can, but maybe no one will have questions. All right, also entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion. This is Melissa.
Okay, a motion by Supervisor Luck.
This is Dave. I'll second.
I will second.
We got second by Supervisor Turk. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Agenda item number 12, sale of surplus sheriff's squad car. Mr. Langer.
Mr. Chair, looking today for a motion to recommend resolution by the county board for the sale of a 2014 Ford Interceptor utility with proceeds to return to the sheriff new car outlay. Background on this item is in the sheriff's fleet, they have a 2014 Ford Interceptor utility that has been taken out of service due to a combination of poor conditions and high mileage, requesting permission to sell this surplus vehicle and that the proceeds of the sale be returned to the sheriff's new car outlay. Rule 14 would require that surplus equipment must be offered by email to other county departments at no cost. If no other county department has use for the surplus equipment, then it is to be liquidated by the supervisory committee by the best means possible. Proceeds from all sales of surplus county property shall be deposited in the general fund. By committee structure E, we have advised and supervised committee. It's administrative affairs. So looking to directly sell it in compliance by resolution, and in compliance by resolution with to kind of circumvent Rule 14. So that is the proposal today, is to allow Sheriff's Office to sell it directly outside of offering the vehicle to other county departments, and then to also then have the fund transfer as part of the resolution and offer resolution set forth to have the proceeds then returned to the sheriff's fund. And again, I would defer to Chief Porter or if Sheriff Bindle is on to further expound.
Okay, yeah, Chief Deputy Porter, you just unmuted yourself, so you're good.
Any questions from anybody on this?
So I think my initial reaction when I saw this was, I remember how just a few months ago we had a request come from the Health and Human Services Department to transfer, I think it was $550,000 from money that they had not spent or still had in their budget as of the end of 2020 into the adult placement fund. And we had some discussion and debate at this committee about it, and in the end the majority of the committee decided to deny the transfer of funds request. And I looked through some past minutes, and I've seen where typically we have done this in the past. We've given this an exception to the sheriff's department. I know about situations in land conservation where this happens out of Ash Creek Community Forest, where the sale of logging goes into a specific account. But you know, my first was, you know, I think, you know, we're being asked to circumvent Rule 14 here and not put the proceeds into the general fund. And I guess it would be more comfortable for me if we had the discussion about how much money do we want to give to the sheriff's department from the general fund when we do our budgeting, instead of, doing this special of Rule 14. I'm actually not sure how comfortable I am doing it anywhere at this point, when we're really trying to build up that general fund and be really careful about our spending. So I'm just curious to know other committee member thoughts as well.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Supervisor Turk.
I know in the past we had done this because new squads were purchased out of that outlay account, but our more recent practice has been to borrow for the cost of those squads. So I don't know if this practice is still, strictly necessary because we are spending borrowed funds to purchase the vehicles, unless there are other costs hanging out there that the new car outlay account needs to cover that aren't covered by the borrowed money.
Yep, maybe Chief Deputy Porter. I don't know if you can address Supervisor Turk's comment there. You're still on mute, Chief Deputy Porter, but speak up and share any comments or questions. I think it'd be good to hear what other people are thinking too.
This is Supervisor Brewer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, in the past we have returned that money to new car outlay, but as Mr. Turk has so aptly described, because we are taking money now out of borrowed funds for squads, it's not readily apparent that we need to put money back in new car outlay.
Okay. Any other? Looks like we're having a lot of people that dropped off and are coming back on. Yeah, Chief Deputy Porter, go ahead. If you want to unmute yourself. I see your messages.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, sorry about that. Go ahead.
I'm not sure if anybody had heard me. It kind of
we didn't hear anything
there. But what I was looking at was, or what I was commenting on was that as we did this last year, 2020, prices on vehicles and equipment came back higher than we had planned when we had initially said how much we wanted to borrow. So if there was additional funds in new car outlay, we could use that to, I guess, give us more of a buffer to the borrowed funds and in case things come back more expensive than we're planning.
Okay. Yeah, we heard you that time, so thank you for doing that choice.
But,
go ahead, Supervisor
Brewer.
Yep.
Deputy Porter, what kind of money are we looking at here to sale of this squad?
It would be hard to say for sure. I would imagine a couple thousand at the most. It's 150,000 miles on a 2014 Explorer. Haven't been watching Wisconsin Surplus closely, but I know they're at that kind of mileage. I don't think it would bring much more than a couple thousand.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, other committee members? Okay, I think my opinion go ahead. Was someone else going to speak up?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, go ahead, Supervisor.
There is also the possibility that when setting up a new vehicle with the necessary equipment, radios and gates and so forth, all the internal staging, sometimes the price of those things, depending upon the configuration of the vehicle, gets way beyond initial estimated cost. And it would be good to have perhaps some money in that fund to cover those possible increased costs that are unanticipated.
Okay. One question I would have for our staff who handles finances, which is kind of in flux right now, but what happens if the sheriff's department spends more than they have in that account.
Well, they have to come and ask for more.
I thought we took care of that when we did our deficiency reports in April. I thought we made those accounts whole from the general fund typically. Clerk Vlasic, can you speak to this? And did anyone else speak to this? Okay, I think my position on it, hearing, not hearing anything else, that's my memory of it. I think if the sheriff's department, if their costs are too high, we end up making them whole at the end anyway when we look over the deficiency report. So, yeah, that's my position on this. I think the money should go back to the general funds according to Rule 14. I don't know that it needs to be offered to other departments. I don't know that that makes sense in this particular case, but so I'd entertain a motion from committee members as far as how folks want to go on this. I think we're just gonna have to take a vote.
Mr. Chair, this is Mark. The only question I guess I have is when we talk about the sheriff's department, or we make sure that we budget or we borrow money.
Wait, what's happening?
Supervisor Gentis, were you having a hard time hearing?
Mark cut out on me.
Okay, yeah, he did on me as well. So I'm not sure. Supervisor Cooey, can you hear us again? Are you back? A few seconds to come back here. I think things were frozen up for a second. Supervisor Cooey, can you hear me? If you don't mind starting over again, you're unmuted now, so go ahead.
I guess my point is that we borrow money to make sure that we get these cars for the sheriff's department. You take like the ambulance, or you take some of these other departments. Typically, when they sell something, it goes back into their funds to purchase, because we don't borrow money to buy a new ambulance, or we don't borrow money typically to help these smaller departments out. So I'm in favor with you of putting this money. I realize it's not a lot of money, but I'm in favor of putting that back into the general fund, just because of that reason, that we are making sure that we borrow money to keep the sheriff's department whole, no matter what.
Okay. Any other committee members? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to recommend the sale of the 2014 Ford Interceptor utility with the proceeds to return to the general fund.
Second.
Okay, second by Supervisor Cooey. Any further discussion? Let's go ahead and take a roll call on this one. Classic. Once you're ready, just go ahead and start calling our names out, please. Let me just check to make sure. So Clerk Vlasic, you are. So we haven't heard you say anything yet, so feel free to go ahead and start taking the roll.
Looks like we must be having connectivity problems.
Yeah, we might be. Let's see, Mr. Langrick, I know you're in the same room as the clerk. Or very nearby. Can you hear us?
He's frozen on my screen.
Okay.
Same here.
Must be something up on that third floor. Slowing us down. Let's go ahead and take let's just take a 2-minute recess if that's okay with folks. And then we'll let them work on this. So let's come back at 2:42.
Sean, can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Yep.
Okay, I've been trying to get a hold of you. Something's going on with the internet at the county. So like you keep losing everybody. We're not hearing hardly anything that's being, we can hear some of what you're saying, but if anybody from the county can hear me, if you disconnect and reconnect, it'll work better.
Keeps doing that. I've noticed that in there before it died.
Okay.
Yep. Do we hear Vic now?
Yeah, sounded like it.
Yeah, Clerk Vlasic, can you hear me now? How about Mr. Langrat? Can you hear me?
Looks like Clint just rejoined.
Yeah, I saw that.
Can you go over, please?
Freeing up some bandwidth.
Quickly.
Can you hear us now?
Yeah.
Yep, we can hear you.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, myself and Victor are here on this account.
Okay, well, why don't we go ahead and try taking the roll? I was thinking about, but for a few minutes, but let's go ahead and try to take the roll on this and see if it works.
Sean?
Aye.
Gentis?
Aye.
Brewer? Marty Brewer? Don Seep?
No.
What else we got? Cooey and Luck.
Luck?
Aye.
Cooey?
I can't make this thing do anything.
Did we hit everybody?
Turk says aye.
Okay.
So it looks like we got everyone except Marty Brewer, but he didn't say anything. So just by my count, it looks like we have 5 yeses and 1 no. So it looks like the motion is adopted. So we keep going. What should we do here? What do you think?
Let's
What do you think,
keep
Miss?
moving and see if we get done, but
Okay.
It's back up now,
Yeah,
most of the
go up here.
places, and I've sent
Okay.
checks over to the courthouse.
If we need to stop anything, just let me know, okay?
Can you grab your cell phone at least so I can text you, because I can't get a hold of you over here?
Oh, sure.
Just if I go down, I'll just text you.
That sounds good. I'll have my phone up.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Agenda item number 13, contract with Southwestern Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission. Mr. Lang.
Mr. Chair, can you hear me? Oh, feedback.
Yeah, we can hear you with that feedback.
Okay, how am I now?
I think it's a little better. Give it a try. I'll stop you.
Okay. I'm looking to for a motion today to recommend Richland County affirms our contract with Southwest Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission for the administration of the Disaster Recovery and Economic Resiliency Grant from the Federal Economic Development Administration, and to make our first payment. This is kind of follow-up action affirming our contract and payment with Southwest Regional Commission for the administration of the grant. This would be also then payment of $12,500, one of 2 invoices which will come for the administration fees. Previous resolution is put on here from resolution number 2019, in which we took action to partner in the grant. So this is kind of just a follow-up then for affirming our commitment to having them do our administrative work and paying them for it. Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So I'd entertain a motion to approve this.
I'll make that motion. This is Melissa.
Okay, motion by Supervisor Luck.
This is Gentis. I'll second it.
Okay, second by Supervisor. Any questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Item number 14, County Administrator Authority to grant extension on using accrued vacation. Mr. Langreich.
Mr. Chair, looking today for a motion to grant temporary authority expiring on 30 April 2021 to the county administrator to extend the deadline for employees to utilize accrued vacation past the 18-month expiration date. All extended times authorized by the county administrator will be utilized no later than 30 June of 2021. Background on this is during our continued COVID-19 pandemic, we're experiencing staff shortages and schedule shifts that have impacted the ability for many employees to utilize their accrued vacation. The proposed action would allow department heads to petition for their extension of accrued vacation. Finance and Personnel recommended under Resolution 285, which was adopted back in July, where we had some extended powers that were put into place for the employees of those time. We've kind of went past that period. 2 variables in support of this action is this is a way to show our support, appreciation to our employees during these times of added operational strain, and the fact that we did not do a COLA increase. And then 2 is that also our Families First Act is expired on the first of the year, and then our extended vacation could be used then for offsetting in the event we have any fortunate folks that are coming in contact yet with COVID and requiring isolations and quarantines. You'll see our committee structure, the language that allows for your authority to do such, handbook language, which authorizes your ability to do the extension of 18 months, and then the previous resolution that was put in place again back in July. I can take questions on this, Mr. Chair.
Committee members, any questions or comments? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion. That's Melissa.
Okay, motion
Dave,
by
I'll
Supervisor
second.
Luck, second by Supervisor Turk. Okay, any discussion or questions on this? Okay, then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, I think I heard 3 ayes. I'll be an aye. Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. Agenda item number 15, short-term capital borrowing policy. Mr. Langreich.
Mr. Chair, looking today for a motion to recommend adoption of short-term capital borrowing program policy. Sorry, just 1 second. Let me turn my second one off here. Okay, can you hear me better now, Mr. Chair? Motion to recommend adoption of a short-term borrowing policy with proposed capital improvements, capital projects as presented, or with amendments, depending on how we do it here today, and present to the County Board for resolution. On September 15th, 2020, County Board adopted by 3/4 votes our ability to do the short-term capital borrowing. With that, we have taken previous action through this body to approve on the different apportionments with a schedule that went forward in a resolution. We had concerns on the policy language and that it may be invoking into state statute 6590, which had to do with budgeting and the discretion that a county can authorize for that. Under follow research with Corporation Counsel, it looks like this does not invoke that, and we can have discretion of reappropriating those funds executed by the Finance and Personnel Committee. So we have an appropriations chart that's in place that is approved by resolution, looking then today to adapt the policy which we had previously reviewed to kind of go with that helps define the administrative procedures for using it, as well as granting then discretion to this body to allow for changing the appropriations for that fund. And again, here is the breakdown of those monies. So because it's our second kind of go at this, I would open it up then for any questions from you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, so I reviewed our minutes from the past, and it looks like we did have this on our December agenda, but then we struck it from the agenda. So that refreshed my memory on why I thought we had already seen this, but we hadn't. So the way Mr. Langrek explained this to me, committee members, when I was looking over the agenda, was that currently when any borrowing happens, or when any spending of the borrowed money happens, it goes to this committee, and then it also goes to the county board for approval. And this policy change, if the county board approves it, would mean that the authority to spend those borrowed monies would no longer go to the county board. Am I correct about that, Mr. Langrek?
Mr. Chair, we would still have to, in following with our rules on the expenditure amounts, it would still have to go through county board. But if we wanted to change our apportionments on our projects, depending on if projects come over and we have additional monies that we would want to carry over into other projects, or for new projects that fit within our resolution language for the borrowing, the discretion on that would then come to the committee.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the clarification. So we would only be changing the fact that we don't have to go to the county board, if the county board approves this, to reallocate funds with which we've already been given authority to borrow and spend. So other committee members, questions or comments on this? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
This is Dave. I'll make the motion.
I will second the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, motion by Supervisor Turk and a second by Supervisor Seep. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, I'm also in favor. Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. Agenda item number 16, formal complaint and reporting mismanagement policy. Mr. Langrek.
Mr. Chair, looking for a motion today. Pull up my agenda here. Apologies, 1 second. Looking for a motion today on approval of our filing a formal complaint concerns of reporting mismanagement. This is kind of a two-piece policy that kind of has the purpose, is intended to allow staff to submit a formal written complaint or concern without fear of prejudice or retaliation for reasons of expressing themselves, as well as reporting mismanagement. It's intended that employees, elected officials follow this in a kind of a formal step to help us flush out some of our problems, some of our concerns, and allow for upper echelons then to appropriately address those. The scope of this policy would go out to all staff and volunteers. The policy overview would include is in compliance with our policy establishment, and it would also replace existing language in our handbook that we have right now that addresses concerns, as this is kind of more of a bolstered type of a process. The sections on filing a formal complaint and concern. For filing a formal complaint and concern, we would be looking at the specifics of a working conditions outside of a safety or health type of a thing, policies, procedures, problems with coworkers, or management decisions. Essentially, how it would be defined then is if I, as an employee, would have a problem with one of these types of issues, I would be writing a formal complaint to the extent and passing it through the chain of command, where those complaints and responses back to the employee are saved in the personnel file to help protect from prejudice, and then allowing a formalized process then to respond to the employee with management's level or an ability to remedy or why it cannot be remedied. When we talk about mismanagement, then we're talking outside of those details and kind of talking into language that you'd find in state statute. With mismanagement, we would be looking on the specifics of, where are we at here? With mismanagement, we would be talking in the specifics of if there's an observed or known about violation of state, federal law, rule, or regulation, a violation of any county ordinance, resolution, rule, or policy, actions taken beyond management's legitimate authority or contrary to committee or board, guidance or policy, substantial waste of public funds or a danger of public health and safety, a pattern of incompetent management actions which are wrongful, negligent, or arbitrary and capricious, and then and which adversely affect the efficient accomplishment of a department or function, and then finally failure to resolve acts of mismanagement at subordinate levels. So there's kind of two different functions here, and they would follow kind of two different reporting schemes. If you're reporting concerns or complaints in regarding to working conditions, policies, procedures, problems with coworkers or mismanagements, you're submitting directly up through the chain of command. If your concerns are of mismanagement in your chain of command, then you're circumventing that and taking it to the higher levels of administration to be addressed and then reported back to the employees. So this was kind of brought about as one of our strategic goals in our strategic planning, and also arrived at from several different county board supervisors who have been approached in capacities by county employees with concerns and feeling of not knowing exactly how to remedy them without having a policy and a procedure in place. So with that being said, I would turn it over back to yourself, Mr. Chair, for any types of questions that you'd have for me.
If we have an employee come to us as a county board supervisor, should this policy be adopted, what should we do?
Yes, if you have a concern that's brought forward to you, and again, if it's a concern that kind of follows the context of working conditions, policies, procedures, problem with coworkers, or management decisions, you know, you'd be referring them to this policy. And if it's in that context, they're taking it through their chain of command in a formal written complaint kind of process where there's formal responses given back to management. If it is in context of something that goes in the lines of mismanagement, using the definitions we have here, then that would be taking it to the administrative level of myself, corporation counsel, county board chair.
Okay, so I would be referring, if it was that latter group, someone came to me, I could say you can either go to the administrator, corporation counsel, or the county board chair. That would be how I would direct that employee, correct?
That is correct. Yep.
Okay, and is this going to be placed on your website? Is that where, you know, we can send it to an employee if they contact us, or?
That is correct.
Okay, all right. Other questions or comments from committee members? I'll just say, you know, I have had this happen to me a couple times, obviously, where employees would come to me. I'm sure some other supervisors have experienced that also. I know Supervisor Glassbrenner, she had reached out to me wanting this to be placed on our agenda, and I know she worked with Mr. Langrecht to come up with a fleshed out policy. So I really appreciate all the work that this took, and And I think with our new form of government, of having an administrator, you know, some of the checks and balances that weren't there previously with the finance, or were there previously, where people could come to the Finance and Personnel Committee, you know, there was some question about how are we going to handle this now that we have an administrator. And I like how this policy just spells it out very clearly. Who should you go to? You know, what's your process for appeal? How do you so I appreciate all the work that Mr. Langrek put into this and others put into it. Okay, so I'd entertain a motion to approve. Oh, did it just go off again? Someone just texted me. I'm not sure if.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Okay.
I'll second motion approve with a question and discussion.
Absolutely. Okay, so we got a motion by Supervisor Luck and a second by Supervisor Seep. And then we'll hand it off to Supervisor Seep and Mr. Langrek if the clerk heard that motion in that second. Sounds like it went, our internet's a little spotty again at the courthouse. So.
Okay, I've got it down as Luck, seconded by Seep.
Okay, thanks. Supervisor Seep, go ahead.
Yes, probably this question is for Mr. Langrek. So that an employee has a complaint, for example, about the department head, either a mismanagement issue or some other issue. Does that employee, in following this chain of command, go through the department head, or does it go directly to Mr. Langrek or the county chair, or to Mr. Southwick?
Again, it would depend on the nature of it. If it's in regards to working conditions, policies, procedures, problem with coworkers, or management decisions, then it is a formal process through the written chain of command, and that would allow then the management to understand that there is a problem and allow them to formally respond to it. If it's in context of how we define mismanagement through violations of laws or legitimate or going beyond legitimate authorities, etc., then it would come to the administrator, corporation counsel, county board chair at their discretion as what's most appropriate. If it's a problem, obviously, with your county administrator and concerns that he's misappropriating money or doing something terrifically dangerous, then obviously you're going to probably take it to corporation counsel or to the county board chair. So the idea is to have three different avenues for reporting that mismanagement to make sure that you're not having to take it to the violating party. But if it's not in the context of mismanagement and it's concerns with operations and decisions and policies and procedures, then we're still taking that through the chain of command to the department head.
So that, suppose the committee that has oversight responsibilities for a department head, how does that committee handle its observations of mismanagement? What chain of command does it follow? What procedure? What policy?
Well, this was put in place for employees and for volunteers, I think, is our scope on this. If you had a problem with our department heads, then it would be communication potentially with who that involves. If it's a department head that falls underneath the administrator, I would be expecting you to reach out to me. If it was an elected official, to be reaching out to that elected official.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, Mr. C?
I think so. The elected official would not reach out to you if the complaint was about the mismanagement of a subordinate employee or a department head. Would or would not?
I guess I'm lost. Can you frame that situation again?
If a committee that has oversight over a department head and has its relationship now with the administrator, presumably is mostly advisory, and it finds that it has concerns with the management or mismanagement behavior of its department head, of its committee, does that committee therefore proceed to you with its concerns, to the administrator, or what's the procedure and policy for handling those kinds of issues?
If it's a department head that's underneath the administrator, then yes, I would be looking for committee or supervisor members to bring those to me. Part of what is intended to be in place and as part of our strategic plan is to have a work performance review kind of in the works, to have conversations like that. I'm hoping as we kind of approach now my second year here, to have that in place where I'm able to sit down with oversight committees and get their intake or their input on their department heads that they're working with to help me in assessing department heads that fall underneath the administrator. Again, if it's a department head that's outside of the scope of the administrator, then I would be expecting that those the committee members and those supervisors are talking directly with that elected official on what the expectations are or where the concerns are.
I think that as this issue evolves, that we really need a clear understanding among committee members in terms of their role and their relationship with the administrator and their role and relationship with the department head. And I think that at present, there seems to be some ambiguity. I'm hoping that we can look forward to more clarity as to the role of the committee in relationship both to the department head and the administrator.
So Supervisor Seep, I think on page 8 of this, the last page of this document that Mr. Langrick's prepared for us, the flow chart is really helpful. And I think if an issue comes up, I would refer to the flow chart to figure out how your complaint, if you have the complaint, or if an employee has a complaint, how they should route their complaint. And the flow chart is unclear. If we find out specific examples, we're not quite sure, who to report it to. I think having a conversation with Mr. Langreck about that, giving him our feedback after we've been able to test this out for a little bit would be helpful. But I think that flow chart for me is really the easiest thing to understand. So if you could blow it up on one of your devices so that you can see that, just let me know if we can help it. I'll get a bigger copy of it to you. I think the flow chart will really help.
Yeah, I think there's somewhat of a learning curve for the committees here, transitioning from their previous roles.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. So let's go ahead and take a vote on this. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Do we have anyone else on? I want to make sure I didn't hear from Supervisors Luck, Gentis, or Brewer.
I said aye. This is Melissa, sorry.
Okay, and I think so Supervisor Cooey told me he had to leave. Supervisor Gentis, I see you here too. I just don't see you off mute. I think I got enough.
I'm here.
Okay, did you say aye?
Yes.
Okay, I wanted to make sure we had enough votes here. Okay, any opposed?
Either September or October.
Okay, so that motion carries. Agenda item number 17, temporary COVID-19 leave plan. Mr. Langreck.
Looking today for motion to recommend County Board resolution adopting the proposed temporary COVID-19 leave plan that allows up to 80 hours of leave for defined COVID-19 related reasons, which would match our family's First Act reasons, with use of employee accrued benefit time off during leave. And with an understanding that the exempted COVID leave remains in effect for our critical employees that test positive, and a negative sick balance also remains in effect for those that run out of accrued benefit time off. The background on this is that our Family Medical Leave Act, expansion act that was signed into legislation by President Trump, sunsetted on December 31st. It's proposed that the county take action to initiate a tentative COVID-19 leave plan by resolution that allows employees up to 80 hours prorated for those less than full-time of leave for COVID-19 related events that may not currently meet eligibility for our sick time or for our FMLA leave. Employees will utilize accrued benefit time for this leave. There would be an exception for our critical employees testing positive, where they were exempted from the family's first eligibility. The previous action of exempted COVID leave remains in effect for critical employees that test positive for eligibility for this pay. And likewise, then, underneath our existing plan, the practice of allowing folks to go into negative sick balance remains into effect for employees without accrued benefit time off. So to kind of walk back in time, we've had extended conversation on Families First Act as a county. Under recommendation by myself, we made the determination to exempt our critical infrastructure employees, a lot of them being at Pine Valley, highway, law enforcement, jail, public health, as well as our folks in ambulance and emergency services. Those folks, there's a couple other ones, they were exempted and they did not have access to the 2 weeks of paid leave and then the extended 2/3 family FMLA Act. So we're in efforts to try to still recognize those folks. We would keep the exempt COVID leave 19 in play, where if they test positive, they would have eligibility for 2 weeks of paid time off. But then for everybody, then we would have eligibility again for up to 80 hours of leave away in utilizing accrued benefited time to cover that for payment. And this is kind of taken from context of a lot of pieces that are in place right now in Grant County and working with Joyce Rawlings down there and kind of talking through some of their decision points as well that they've made there, matched some of our decision points. And so this is the plan that's brought forward to you. There's a spectrum of options that you would be able to do. You can utilize the existing language, and we could extend all current criteria and payments for Family First Act. When it's sunsetted, the sunsetting meant that it's no longer mandated, but Congress did have language in there that for those folks that are essentially not public entities, if they had the option of continuing it, they would be able to file for tax credits. We're not eligible for that, so any types of extension to it, we would still be kind of taken out of height for our own pay purposes. But that would kind of be one end of the spectrum, is keeping everything status quo, to the other end of saying, well, no, we just have sick leave and FMLA in place. So this is kind of an in-the-middle target that is seen as trying to be more fair and comprehensive and consistent across the board. And it's a lot, so I would be here for any questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, if not, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval.
Okay, motion by Supervisor Seat.
This is Dave. I'll second.
Second by Supervisor Turk. Okay, any other second thoughts or discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, I'll vote aye as well. So that motion carries. Agenda item number 18, Administrator Transition. Mr. Langreich.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead. What was that?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Item today, looking for consideration for recommendations of the Administrative Transition Committee to take action on items proposed on an attached list, which will be presented. And then note that the establishment of authority of your transition committee expires on February 1st. So just keep that in mind as we kind of move through these different items. The background on this item is that a temporary Administrator Transition Committee was formed by County Board Resolution number 20-126. This temporary committee was tasked with identifying the staffing needs of the county administrator, evaluating staffing levels across all departments in the county to identify what staff, if any, can be moved from other departments to the county administrator's office, identify what office space the county administrator and his staff will occupy, and then presenting recommendations to the county to the Finance and Personnel Committee as to staff and office space matters, and to Rules and Resolutions Committee as to the handbook, personnel policies, and addendums to conform to the statutory provisions relating to county administrator. The following recommendations were made by the Administrator Transition Committee. On December 16th, there was motion Glassbrenner, seconded Luck, to recommend to the Finance and Personnel Committee the reduction of the accounting supervisor payroll benefit specialist positions in the county clerk's office, and addition of same positions to the administrator's office with necessary position functions adjustments effective February 1st. A discussion followed. All ayes and motion carried. December 16th, also there was motion Glassbrenner, seconded Turk, to recommend to Property Committee the reassignment of county clerk's computer room to the administrator with joint use of the main office space for both department staff. Discussion followed. All ayes, motion carried. On November 6th, there was motion by Turk, seconded by Glassbrenner, that the county administrator needs staff. All ayes, motion carried. And then on December 16th, the committee members requested a future agenda item of a position description for the proposed clerical assistant position to be brought back to them. An attached proposed action language list is included in this that we'll walk through. Overall, then, financial impacts is if an additional county administrator, an additional position essentially is added to the mix. Estimation on that is approximately $41,000 and change, not to include fringe and benefits, as well as other expenses that may go along with transitioning from one budget to another for such things as contract, auditing contract, AS400 contract, and other types of expenses that may go into the transition. With that being said, then we'll take a look at a review was done by the Administrator Transition Committee and looking through the existing 3 positions at the county clerk's office and identifying which ones essentially kind of fell into the realm of financial and HR functions that could be transitioned outside of the office, not seen as statutorily required of the county clerk, but currently right now is put onto the county clerk by desire of the county board. And so an assessment was done of that and identifying which positions, again, which functions potentially could be moved from the county clerk's office without violating statutory authorities of the county clerk to perform those duties, and then the staffing needs to perform those duties. We also looked at a timetable that kind of took an annual shot. Again, this is a very oversimplified look at some of the HR and financial functions of the county clerk's office, broken down into Jan, Feb, March, April, etc., and looking to see on the best available times to do a transition, or perhaps the least worst times. The dates and options that were presented was a sooner option of coinciding with February 1st, which kind of lined up with the lifespan of the Administrator Transition Committee by resolution. A later option of mid-year of July 5th, the first payroll going into the second quarter, and then an end of the cycle, or option 3, transitioning into the next year of 2022. The different proposed action languages that may be appropriate to consider in the transition included several different groups. First, in realm of functions, in order potentially for a transition to happen, we'd be looking for action, motion, resolution, essentially, that is saying to the extent that the county administrator authority and responsibility for human resources functions is transferred, as well as the authority for the financial functions, for replacement of the recruiting and replacement for the existing vacancy in the accounting supervisor, currently designated as the accounting supervisor deputy position. A function then also for insurance programs, as well then as action or motion to rescind or to repeal the current tasks that are placed on the county clerk right now by ordinance number 2026, which put insurance and financial and HR functions on the position right now. Then we would have 2 sections that kind of address the different personnel needs in transitioning the positions, essentially an accounts payable position of a retitling to a deputy clerk position, and then reassigning the essential duties there. An accounting supervisor position, currently designated as the deputy clerk position, would become an accounting supervisor position, as well as establishing the kind of the details on that of keeping it in the same pay grade, as well as assigning the new duties by position description. Addressing the payroll and benefits specialist position. And then this item here for the county administrator's office clerical assistant. This has not been taken action by a recommendation by the administrator transition. It's put on here. There is a position description to go with it, but is not currently a recommendation coming to you from the committee, but is an option that is there for you to consider as well. The next piece of it are different bits involving the office space. A recommendation that the computer room be reassigned to the administrator's office. Recommendation that the county clerk's office be shared to accommodate the deputy county clerk, as well as then the 3 potential positions that are transitioned over to the administrator. Recommendation to work with MIS to find an alternate location for the existing AS400 system that is located in the computer room. And then several bits here that kind of talk on the realm of transition, of recommending that the county clerk remain with involvement with financials, insurances, and HR functions for the role of teaching, coaching, advising the county administrator. Recommendation that the county administrator work with the county clerk in ensuring appropriate access remains in place to have necessary access for the reports and informations that the clerk would need. Recommend the administrator work with the county clerk to providing staffing support for elections and supporting efforts. A recommendation the county administrator work with the county clerk in identifying budgetary impacts and bring forward amended office budgets reflecting the changes in the personnel and functions. So there are many different kind of bits and details here that are seen as motions or potentially elements to include in resolution language. Some of the different conversations had in the administrator transition committee talked to the extent as well on the authorities and resolution languages for the county clerk as well as for the county board on pursuing a transition like this. And at this point, I would probably turn it over, Mr. Chair, recommend turning it over to the chair of that committee, Supervisor Luck, who could expound upon perhaps the different authorities and languages that were referenced in conversation, as well as other details that I may have went over.
Yeah, that sounds good. Supervisor Luck, if you could take it from here, that'd be great.
Yeah, so can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I wanted to just first quickly kind of review what information this committee looked at in order to make the decision to make the recommendation that we've made so far. So like he said, and he showed you in that really nice Excel spreadsheet, we reviewed job descriptions of the accounting supervisor, the payroll and benefits specialist, and the accounts payable positions. We also looked at statutes to determine which duties were kind of clerk statutory duties, administrator coordinator, county administrator duties. Then we reviewed the staffing levels of county clerks' offices in the rest of the state to see how many, what other counties are doing as far as what are normal staffing levels for the county clerk's office, whether there's a county administrator or not. We also consulted with the WCA attorney, Attorney Phillips, to get information or get his input on what sort of authorities the county board has in determining staffing levels. And we also consulted with administrators in other counties to see how the financial functions interact between the county administrator's office and the clerk's office and the treasurer's, just to get an understanding of how that all works. And then, 2 really important pieces when we were making this decision is our strategic plan. Item number 2 of our approved plan says we want to transfer HR and finance duties from the clerk's office to the county administrator. And if you look at our administrator's job description, items number 4, 5 of that are budget preparation and execution, financial reporting and planning, and human resources. So in going over all of that information, that was what we used to come to the determination that we wanted to transfer positions, which we can't transfer the positions. By authority, what we can do is we can determine how many positions are in each department. So I think the statute that I read that really helped us, and I'm going to just quickly read it. So Wisconsin Statute 5922 2C 1B is, so it's appointed officials, deputy officers, and employees. So it says, except for elected officials included under supervisors and circuit judges and subject to 59-794, the board has the powers to set forth in this subsection as to any office, department, board, commission, committee, position, or employee in the county service created under any statute, the salary or compensation for which is paid in whole or in part by the county, and the jurisdiction and duties of which lie within the county or the portion thereof, and the powers conferred by this section shall be in addition to all other grants of power and shall be limited only by express. One is, except as provided in sub 2 par B, the board may do any of the following. And the one that is important is B, is establish the number of employees in any department or office, including deputies to elected officers. So in speaking with the WCA attorney, and this was the statute that he referred us to, informing us that the county board does in fact have the authority to decide the number of positions that are in any department, including that of an elected official. I will say that the statute does require that we allow the deputy clerk or the county clerk's office to have a deputy. So there's no argument that the clerk will have a deputy. It doesn't specify whether that deputy is full-time, part-time, whatever. It just says that they will have a deputy. And then the other part that I just wanted to quickly share was when in speaking with Attorney Phillips, he really helped me clarify the role of the clerk in the finances of the county. So the clerk is the repository for the records of accounts. The records do not necessarily originate in the clerk's office and oftentimes do not. The clerk's office will communicate with finance and payroll positions, but it is not required that the clerk supervise these positions. Many other counties have an administrator as well as separate HR and finance departments that are not under the supervision of the clerk. So we don't need to be reinventing the wheel. We know that there is a way that this can all function correctly. It's just a matter of getting us there. So what we determined was that we would like to designate one position for the clerk's office and two positions, HR and a finance position, for the county administrator's office. We asked that he bring us forward a job description or some kind of idea of the duties that would be needed for a third position potentially under the county administrator, but we have not delved into that any further. So that's
yeah,
in a nutshell.
That's great. Thank you, Supervisor Luck. Supervisor Turk, I know you're also on that committee. I'm wondering if you want to add anything to what Supervisor Luck just ran through.
No details to add, but just to comment on the amount of research and discussion that went into these considerations was phenomenal, and Supervisor Luck engaged in a lot of that, and Clint Langrick, of course, and working with the clerk's office to try to figure these things out. It's been a lot of work in the background even before our committee started dealing with stuff. So thanks to all those who've been diligently working at making this. And I think Melissa is right to cite, our strategic plan, and this is the direction we wanted to go. This is how we see best accomplishing that.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor Turk. And then Supervisor Gentis and Supervisor Seep. I'm just wondering if either of you have questions or comments.
And this is Gentis. I have a couple questions. When you said you did you talk to the employees that are currently there? And what is the computer room? I guess I don't know where that is. And is it feasible to start this on February 1st? I have 3 questions.
Okay, let's kick that back to Supervisor Luck as the chair of that committee, if that's okay.
Okay, well, I'll take the first one. The computer room is the room that's currently houses the AC 400. It's in direct proximity to the county clerk's office, I believe. And the idea was that Mr. Langrick would be in that office, and then any support staff would be in the middle office where they are already currently residing. But then would also be the clerk would stay in the office that he is in, and that way the communication in this transition would be most convenient. And then the question on, have we spoken to the employees? If you're referring to the employees in the clerk's office, Administrator Langrick has had conversations with the employees, I believe. I guess I'd like him to expound on that question. And what was your other question? The February 1st deadline.
Do this February 1. I
Right.
like the fact that you're keeping people together and that the administrator and the clerk will be somewhat working close together, because I think that's key that they both work together on this. Thank you.
Correct. And so the February 1st deadline, so one thing I should have touched on was, we did have a long discussion about what's the best timing, or as Mr. Langrick referred to it as the least worst, which is absolutely true. There's no great time to do this. And what it came down to was that we have an open position that's a critical position for this county. Our accounting supervisor position is currently open. And the discussion is if we have that position filled now by the county clerk with a job description that's not necessarily accurate, because we're going to be transferring that, we intend to transfer that position to the administrator's office, that it would just be really confusing for a person to try to come into that situation where you potentially have two bosses, and it just didn't seem like a very logical thing to do, that it would just create more problems. And we may not get people to apply because with the position being in flux like that. So it was determined that really we need to fill that position as soon as possible. And it makes the most sense to fill it with the person who's going to be in the office in which that person is going to actually report to. And so that's how the February date really got chosen, was because we need that position filled. It's a critical position, and we need to advertise and get it filled, and it makes sense to have it filled by the person who will ultimately be supervising them. So
I agree that they should be filled right away. I think I saw on there, it said who should be interviewing for this when I read it. And I think that it should be maybe someone from your committee who's now and the clerk and the administrator. That's my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman.
There was just one other question that Supervisor Luck didn't answer, that she punted to Administrator Langreck about talking to the employees in the clerk's office. Just want to make sure that her question gets answered there.
In context of the position descriptions and job duties, I received feedback from staff, as well as putting together the timeline for when some of the, again, the oversimplified events are happening in the office. Does that answer your question?
So you discussed it with them? I didn't quite follow what you were really saying.
Yes, in putting together proposed revisions to the position descriptions and talking about the different functions that the office performs, received feedback from staff, as well as the timeline that we looked at on the different functions that are occurring over there. Also referenced staff feedback on what that calendar looks like.
Okay, Supervisor Seep, you had some questions?
Yes, thank you. And thank the committee, the transition committee, for all its very good work. And Melissa, as usual, does an excellent job. I am interested in the title county supervisor. What is that the same as administrative assistant, or what is it?
I believe you said, I'm not sure if you said county supervisor or accounting supervisor. We've been talking about the accounting supervisor position that Derek Kalish formerly held.
and
Oh,
down on what they
accounting.
sent us.
Did you say accounting rather than county?
Yes, I said accounting. Yes.
Oh, okay. I understand now. And
Okay.
secondly, so you would have an accounting supervisor, an HR person, reporting and working with the administrator. Is that correct? And
That's correct. That's what the transition committee has recommended to us.
And does the committee recommend an administrative assistant for the county administrator?
Haven't yet. Oh, go ahead,
Yeah.
Supervisor.
I was going to say, yeah, no, we have not made that recommendation yet.
Well, that to me is.
You put it out there, but we haven't got a formal recommendation, right?
I see. Well, certainly a needed position, and I'm hopeful that that will come forward.
It isn't our intent to talk about that at the next meeting. That was a proposed future agenda item at the last meeting, and that was when we asked Administrator Langrick to come up with the job description and potential duties that position would entail. I think why I think it should go back to that committee is that I think we want to have further discussions about the potential of, instead of creating a new position, finding staff within our existing pool that could fulfill that role instead of creating a new position.
It's if you did a task analysis of the administrator's work, it's a highly critical position in my view.
I agree completely. I agree. He has a lot of balls in the air, and I think he needs someone to help keep them there. So yes, we agree. I think the big discussion will be how we fill the position, whether we create a new position or whether we find staff from within our existing staff pool.
So a job description has to come forth from the administrator, I suppose, for that position. That was a question.
Well, in our meeting materials today, I believe there was already a job description there, but we've ceded our authority of approving job descriptions to the administrator.
Yeah. Yes. So, fine. So I understand that.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you very much. I'm pleased with the committee's hard work, and I have a lot of confidence in the administrator as well as the county clerk, and I know that they will have a fine working relationship, and in the end, it's going to work.
Mr. Lopez, I have a question.
Yep, go ahead.
Mr. Langrick sort of touched on this, but I'm wondering if I'm not sure that we can take action on this, although he did bring it up in our cover sheet, so it is on the agenda. But I wonder if we do need to extend because our committee is only through February 1st, and potentially to work, because we haven't even started talking about making sure we got all our ordinances and resolutions and all that other stuff up to date and taken care of, which was the third task of this committee. So I don't know if we want to talk about extending it now, and because it was approved by both rules and finance and personnel, the formation of this committee, and then to the board. So if we need to extend it, I'm not sure what we need to do.
When it's in order here, I'd make that motion.
So I believe gosh, I'm not sure, maybe Supervisor Turk knows this, but I thought the creation of committees, is that born out of the rules committee? You used to chair that. That's why I'm wondering.
The board creates the committee, and if it's going to be an ongoing committee, it's incorporated into the committee structure resolution. But this was a temporary committee, and when it was created, there was a sunset date for it. So I think it would take board action to extend that sunset date, would be my understanding.
Okay.
Clint, does that sound right to you?
Yes, and Mr. Chair, the committees, there was two committees that brought the resolution forward. It was sponsored by both Rules and Resolutions and Finance and Personnel, if memory serves, having looked at the resolution today.
Okay, and do you Supervisor Luck, do you wish to recommend a date today that you would want to extend that committee work to?
I would like to go to June 1st. I don't want to go too far out because I really like to keep the momentum going and get this job done. But I think that digging into all of the ordinances and resolutions that potentially, we've started chipping away at the personnel handbooks and the administrative handbook, but I think it'd be good to just really do a thorough job and get as much of that taken care of as possible.
Okay, so I'm wondering if, I'm just thinking about all the balls we got up in there on this agenda item right now. If I go to the cover sheet for this agenda item in italics, where Mr. Langrek is listed out the recommendations made by the Administrator Transition Committee, the top one says that they recommend to the Finance and Personnel Committee the reduction of the accounting supervisor and payroll benefit specialist positions in the county clerk's office and addition of the same positions to the administrator's office with necessary position function adjustments effective February 1st. So that's the recommendation. So to me, that seems to be the top one. So I'm wondering if we can take that first, if someone can make that a motion, and then if we can take a vote on that, and then we can handle the other issues that are out there as well.
I would make that motion, Melissa.
Okay, so motion by Supervisor Luck.
This is Dave. I'll second.
Okay, second by Supervisor Turk. Any further discussion on this particular motion?
This extends it to June 1st?
No, we are.
Oh, okay.
We're setting that aside just for a moment, just to take care of the bigger issue here.
So you're just doing the first part of it, not the effective February 1.
No,
that's the motion.
I've got it effective February. The way I read it off of the sheet, it was effective February 1st. Now, this is what we're talking about here is we're talking about the reduction of those two positions in the county clerk's office and the addition of the same positions in the administrator's office effective February 1st. It doesn't have anything to do with the length of time for the administrator transition committee to do their work.
No, I understand. So we're actually voting that we're going to transfer these positions now February 1, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And how about the hiring? Because we don't have the hiring. Should we do a separate thing for that?
I think if we're going to take anything else separately, let's try to handle these things one at a time and consider what we need to recommend as motions. We've got a lot of motions in front of us, and so yeah, let's keep that separate if we can.
Well, if the position is transferred, then the authority to hire that would go with it, I assume.
That's true. Yes. So this might be referring to that one question mark that you were seeing, Supervisor Gentis. Is that right? I see.
Right.
Okay. Thank you, Supervisor Turk. That clarifies it for me. So yes, if this passed, that would mean the hiring would also go to the administrator, and I'm assuming the administrator can choose who he'd like to be as part of that.
Well, I'd just like to recommend, like I did before, who should be on it.
Administrator Langrek, do you have any comments on that, Supervisor Gentis's suggestion?
Certainly, I plan on having folks that are intimately involved with that position to get their input on it. Not a doubt about it, with having clerk's input as well as potentially the treasurer, other office staff, to have capacity for them to give their input so that it's a person that is going to be a good fit, an appropriate fit, and potentially a long-term fit.
Yeah, because for the last one, I was on the committee to hire plus the people in the office plus the clerk. So I think it's good that you're having people in the office as well as someone on the committee and the clerk too. Thank you. I'll quit talking about it now.
No, that's okay. That's good. Okay, any other discussion on this motion that's before us? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 there any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. I think the other thing before us then is the extension of the work of the Administrator Transition Committee to June 1st. So I'd entertain a motion to recommend to the Rules Committee and the County Board that occur.
Like that motion, Gentis.
Okay.
Luck will second.
Motion by Supervisor Gentis and a second by Supervisor Luck. Any further discussion on this motion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. And then are there any other motions, Supervisor Luck, that you think came out of your committee that we need to consider today?
Yeah, when I was looking at the resolution for the formation of our committee, it does say, and it's right above here on this thing that he's got highlighted, it says presenting recommendations to finance and personnel as to staff and office space. And we ended up referring it to property because that was what Corporation Council recommended, but why don't we approve it through here too? That way we have crossed all our T's and dotted all our I's. I mean, it would be an easy.
Okay, and is this going to the property committee tomorrow, Mr. Langrek? I believe they have a meeting the first Wednesday of every month.
It can be added to the agenda, Mr. Chair.
Okay, all right, so I hear what you're saying, so so you've made a motion. Let's see if we could scroll down just a little bit here on that sheet there. You've made a motion to recommend the reassignment of the county clerk's computer room to the administrator with joint use of the main office space for both department staff. Is that correct, Supervisor Luck?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, is there a Okay, I'll go ahead and second it. So motion by Supervisor Luck and a second by myself. Any discussion on the office space matter?
And the only thing I would add to that is that I don't foresee this as being a permanent solution to office space. I think that this is appropriate space for a transition, but not for permanent. And obviously we will come back to this in the future, but for now, this is a good solution.
Okay. Anything else?
I appreciate that comment that Melissa just made. I think we should look upon this as not a permanent solution.
Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and call the vote then. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, so that motion carries. Any other motions that you'd recommend, Supervisor Luck?
No, I mean, when you're looking at that Excel spreadsheet that Mr. Langrick has that is looking at that where these recommendations were, I think one thing that he is trying to get at, and correct me if I'm wrong, is, that I think he would like some of this formalized into resolution form, just formalizing that he will work closely with the clerk and just having it be a formal indication that this is the manner in which we want him to proceed. I think that it might not be terrible to have that kind of language included as well in a resolution. But correct me if I'm wrong, Administrator Langrick.
Yeah, there's how the county board wants to proceed will certainly do due diligence in sorting it out. It's just some of these other bits and pieces and details would help kind of sort out the details and the expectations on the front end to help avoid any types of, like I said, missed expectations. So again, the list here is kind of put in regards to the details on it with the personnel transfers, as well as kind of affirming that the functions are transitioning in conjunction with the people, and then talking about the office space, which we have, but then also kind of affirming the details on the existing space to be shared, as well as transition notes of how myself and the clerk are to interact on ensuring that we're keeping financials and HR going, as well as giving support for those for the clerical duties of elections, etc.
Can I just clarify, would you like we've already passed the motions, but this language could be sent to Corporation Council to be included in with the motions as we propose them? Is that kind of what you're saying?
That's what I visualized as having a kind of a package of all these types of items to help define it. With moving the positions effective February 1st, that's one thing, but then ensuring that the expectations, like I said, of the responsibilities and the financial or the responsibilities and the authorities that kind of go with the functions are kind of what's being implied if it's just left at motion to move those two positions. So to try to sort that out, to try to sort out then what is still out there by ordinance number 2026 that kind of puts HR, financial, and insurance functions onto the county clerk's plate. Those types of things are kind of, again, inferred by the moving of the people, but not necessarily defined and specified by the county board. As well as then, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it does seem that we do need to deal with that ordinance because
Yes.
otherwise we are in violation of our own ordinance.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep, go ahead, Supervisor Seep. Yep.
Yeah, I certainly agree with Melissa and with Mr. Langrex. We need to have this in a working document, either by form of resolution or by ordinance, so that it's all in one package. It just can't be a bundle of motions. We need to put together the whole the whole program in a resolution or in an amended ordinance or an ordinance. So I think it behooves us to take this matter, as Melissa said, to Mr. Southwick and have him work it up.
But I would say that we do need to make sure that we move on this because we've got to get that position filled. So
right.
So I think, the Administrator Transition Committee is going to be meeting again probably this month. I think we'll look forward to continued recommendations from that committee as to other pieces of this that you guys think needs to come to us. And I'm sure that we can make sure that these are compiled into one document somehow, some sort of a transition guide, perhaps. I know you did that when we did the whole Supervisor Luck. I know you did this when you were chairing the administrator committee, the one where we even sought out the idea of doing this. So maybe that's some of the feedback I'm hearing from Supervisor Seep, is it might be nice to have things packaged up nicely.
Right. So when we're all done, I think that we will continue to bring recommendations as we get them, because I don't want to wait until we've got it all figured out, because that makes this timeline drag on way too long. So I do believe we need to move forward with what we've got today, because it's really important that we get these positions in place. But I can absolutely, when the transition committee is done, I can do a summary document where and that would be good for transparency and for public input as well, that we can have where we share with them all of the information and how we came to our determinations and how we made the decisions. So that's definitely doable.
Okay, great. Well, we'll look forward to more recommendations from that committee. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to agenda item 19, future agenda items. Just a reminder, we can't discuss the content of any of these. I also want to mention that several of the ideas that we got from the committee back in December, Administrator Langreck has been working on those, and he actually had a list, believe it or not, of about, I think it was almost 30 items for today. And so I asked him to pick the top 15, and we have several of those items that people had suggested that are coming back at our next meeting, and we'll handle our next meeting dates under agenda item number 20. But for now, if we can just go around and see if there's any future agenda items, we probably warn you out, so maybe you won't have any, but I'll just go around the room here. Supervisor Gentis, do you have any?
No, I don't have anything today. Thank you.
Okay, Supervisor Turk.
Nothing at this time.
Okay, Supervisor Seep.
Are you amenable to my submitting ideas to you later on in a timely manner?
Yes, you don't have to do it in front of everyone. You can do it. You can just email me or call me with items also.
Well, it takes me a while to.
It happens. No problem. You can always do it at another time. And then Supervisor Luck.
I don't have any future items, but I just want to make sure, did we officially have a motion to extend to June 1st? Because we talked about it, but then we started going back to the ones we had on the table. And I'm not sure.
I thought we passed 3 motions.
Was one of them to extend that transition committee to June 1st?
I did that.
That was the second one, I believe. And then the third one was office space.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure because I couldn't remember if we actually did it or not.
Yep. Does anyone remember that differently?
Remember that like you do.
Okay. All right. So then agenda item number 20, Administrator Langrek, what date would you like us to adjourn to? You and I talked about doing something in a couple weeks.
Presumably at this point after county board, as that leads to a lot of more congestion. So for a meeting in 2 weeks, that would be the week of the 18th. 18th is the Monday, 19th is the county board meeting. So I would propose, if it works out with other folks, for Thursday the 21st.
Okay, at 1 p.m. and remotely. How does that work for other committee members? Is that a problem for anyone?
Thursday the 21st, is that the third? Is that a Thursday?
Thursday the 21st is a Thursday, yep.
And is that the third Thursday?
That's the third Thursday.
I have a meeting that morning at 10 o'clock, so I'll be fine.
Okay.
I have a couple of conflicts that afternoon.
Okay, you do.
Okay.
Anyone else? Supervisor Gentis and Luck?
It works for me.
Doesn't work for Mr. Turk.
What about Wednesday, January 20th at 1 p.m.? Would that work for you, Mr. Langrick?
Zoom, and so does Marty Brewer with the chancellor at
Yes,
Platteville.
I'm on that too.
Okay, so
Yeah,
that does
Dave
not work.
Turk.
Okay. And then
What's
what
wrong with
about
the 21?
Friday? What about Friday, January 22nd at 1 p.m.?
I'm good.
Me.
I'm Mr. Stevens.
Okay. Clerk Vlasic and Mr. Langrick, does that work for both of you? Okay, it's good for Mr. Langrick. Clerk Vlasic, can you do Friday, January 22nd at 1 p.m.?
No.
Okay, hearing nothing different from the clerk, I'm going to assume that will work. So we'll go ahead and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn to Friday, January 22nd at 1 p.m. remotely.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by Supervisor Luck, second by Supervisor Seep. All those in favor signify by saying
aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. Thanks, everyone, for your patience in dealing with a very long meeting. We got a lot done today, though.
Thank you, Chairman.
See you guys later.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.